Okay, so today I'm going to be telling you about malingering and can it be prevented. Basically, Nicola just was telling us about something we would call faking good. People in job interviews fake good, but malingering is kind of faking bad. So I think it's actually quite nice, the order of the talks. This is the paper that I and my PhD student, Emre Akja, yes, I have it on a post-it, how to pronounce the last name. Akja, we published this year, in which we tried experimentally to prevent malingering and see what it works out. Just a little bit of background about malingering. So it is a deceptive behavior, but it is in the field of symptom validity assessment, meaning that people lie about the symptoms that they are experiencing. They are actually pretending to experience worse symptoms than they actually have. So we call that showing negative response bias or faking bad. So that's actually how malingering is defined in DSM, is intentional gross exaggeration or full fabrication of physical or psychological symptoms for external benefits. So money, obtaining drugs, or avoiding prison and similar things. However, it's very important that we know that malingering is not dichotomous. It's not yes or no. It can be a slight exaggeration or gross exaggeration or full fabrication. So it is more difficult to just put it in one box. But estimated prevalence of feigning, any kind of level of feigning, is around 30% of symptom reports. However, this estimation differs depending on the context. So it is actually more frequent in civil context than in criminal context, probably because the stakes are higher. And it also depends on type of symptoms. So if we look at physical symptoms, those are, for instance, chronic fatigue or mild traumatic brain injury are the most commonly fabricated. But then if we look at psychological issues, those are depression or post-traumatic stress disorder. But we wouldn't expect to find 30% prevalence in broken arm, for instance. You cannot really fake that frequently. So what's the issue? The issue, the consequences, of course. So there are legal consequences, not only for a malingerer themselves if they get caught and then face additional fraud charges, but also for practitioners who enabled malingerers to move through the system. There are also consequences for treatment outcomes. So all these, for instance, evaluations of treatments. If you are not sure that you don't have malingerers in your treatment group, these people are never going to say that they feel better because it's not in their interest to feel better, to recover. Therefore, they can impact in a very negative way the evaluation of the treatment program. Then, of course, resources, talking about money or even beds in treatment clinics, those are occupied by people who shouldn't be there, or money is given to people who don't actually need that kind of help, while these resources are limited. So genuine patients do suffer the consequences. And then, of course, we also have personal consequences. What was shown is that malingerers, after they are kind of discovered as malingerers, they lose the trust of close people around them, and they usually face depression because they are usually abandoned. So those are also personal consequences that appear. So about the detection, because it's important due to all these consequences to detect malingering as much as we can, we use symptom validity tests, or SVTs, and within those, there are performance validity tests, which are basically easy cognitive tasks that anybody can do. But then if you can do them, we kind of know that you're exaggerating your problems. And there are self-report validity tests, which look like symptom inventories. It's just that they include extreme or bizarre or implausible claims that genuine patients wouldn't actually say yes to. And I'm now presenting a measure that we use in this research, and that is a type of self-report validity test, and that's self-report symptom inventory, or SRSI. And the interesting thing about this measure is that it includes genuine items, or items describing genuine complaints, and then it's mixed with implausible claims. And it covers many different issues, from cognitive, somatic to psychological issues such as PTSD, anxiety, depression. And there is a cutoff score, meaning that people who endorse more than 9 of these implausible claims, that they show negative response bias, therefore that we should check additionally the validity of their reports. So then we talk about prevention, right? Because the detection, to be honest, is not great. It's not great. We can do better. It's not shitty, but it's not great. So then we need to talk about prevention of malingering as well. And research so far focused on moral reminders and priming and cognitive dissonance. And disappointing results, not surprisingly. I'm looking at Henry's face, who just asked me, does cognitive dissonance even exist anymore? We unfortunately were not lucky to find strong results using moral reminders or priming, and even Blank in 2015 showed the meta analysis about moral priming not actually working, right? So we got to this idea, but what if we actually present the actual consequences of malingering? So not to go into morality and whatnot, but to just say, by the way, these are the consequences that you could be facing. So that's what we did. Yeah. So the sample, 145 psych students, and we split them randomly in different groups. So first was truth tellers. So say truth, nothing but the truth. They just needed to respond honestly to the questionnaires we gave them. But then we had what I call civil feigners here and criminal feigners. And what was the task is that civil feigners, they actually got the vignette. We, of course, use the simulation design that we often use in this field. The participants who got into the civil feigning group, they received a vignette that they imagine that they are in a harmless car crash. However, if they claim to have PTSD, that they could get big bucks from insurance company. And the third group, the criminal feigners, they actually got a vignette to imagine participating in an aggravated assault. So they are in court. They definitely beat up somebody. However, if they claim to have PTSD, that the charges will be lower. So the task was to feign post-traumatic stress disorder. But then we also had the civil warned feigners and criminal warned feigners. And what that means that they received the identical vignettes explaining either the car crash or explaining the aggravated assault. But underneath, there was this text about, by the way, if you get detected, just so you know that you could be facing charges for fraud and that you could be included in some treatment programs, which would actually lead to false or wrongful evaluation of it, that you're taking resources from genuine patients and so on. So they received the whole paragraph about the consequences. And then all of them were administered the SRSI. So the results, these are the groups. And as I said, SRSI has separate genuine scale or genuine item scale and implausible claim scale. So first, looking at genuine symptoms, which can range from 1 to 50, we see that truth tellers obtain around 16, endorse 16 items, but then we see that all other feigning groups around 30, above 30. And statistically, only truth tellers obtain significantly lower scores than all 4 feigning groups, but feigning groups mutually did not differ. Then looking at pseudo or implausible symptoms, we do see on this that criminal feigners and criminal warrant feigners have a bit lower means than the civil feigners. However, the results were still the same. So only truth tellers obtained significantly lower scores, while the feigning groups mutually did not differ. But then we looked at the cutoff, so the detection rate. And unfortunately, we found a false positive around 10%. So even 10% of truth tellers were detected as malingerers, let's say like that. But then here we see that the detection rates are actually quite okay, 88%, 86%, but criminally warned feigners, they were actually significantly lower in being detected. So it's around 60%. So as I just said, truth tellers obtain the lowest score on SRSI. Feigners did not mutually differ, but detection rate was significantly lower only for warned criminal feigners. So what we could say based on this, we could argue that consequences or presenting consequences does lower feigning, but only in a high stake context. And this is an optimistic version of the interpretation, because alternatively, we could say that presenting consequences makes feigning more sophisticated in high stake context. Because what happens is that when we look just at the scores, they did not mutually differ. But when we look at the detection rate, we detect significantly less of them. So that's a problem. So overall results are less disappointing, let's say it like that, than moral priming, but not satisfactory yet. So future work is needed. So to go back to the original question is, can it be prevented? I say maybe not sure. That's my final answer. Thank you very much.